Hello there. My name is Colin Sipple, and this is Cole Vasky, and we are part of the senior design team that worked on the Vadozone capstone project. So a little bit about the Nebraska Water Center, which is our sponsoring organization. It's a water resources research institute that is associated with the University of Nebraska. And so they facilitate research on the use of water in agricultural and domestic settings. And they also promote education on water sciences, management, and policy. There are numerous research projects associated with the Nebraska Water Center, but we have been working with the Nebraska Vadozone project. And essentially what that is all across Nebraska, they'll take soil core samples and then they'll analyze the chemical compounds of the soil in the Vadozone, which we'll cover later on. On the left, you can see Dr. Chittaranjan Ray. He is the director of the Nebraska Water Center. And on the right, you can see Dr. Daniel Snow. He's the head of the Water Sciences Laboratory of the Nebraska Water Center, and he's also the head of the Nebraska Vadozone project. So at our weekly sponsor meetings and throughout the capstone project, we've had lots of communication, input, and feedback from both Dr. Snow and Dr. Ray. In addition to those two, we've also received a lot of help and feedback from Mark Misarch. He's the maintainer of the current Vadozone database, and he's given us lots of good feedback and technical overview of both the previous system and feedback on the systems we've been working on throughout the project. So people that can benefit from our project are Nebraska Water Center employees, in that it can affect the speed at which they can help input and regulate data that is put into the database through the site, and it reduces the need to have to manually check for errors. There's Dr. Snow. It'll also benefit the public at large because the Nebraska Vadozone project is used for lots of public research and public education. And the eventual goal of the project is to create a map with all these core samples on it, where people can help better understand the role of concepts like water quality in the groundwater throughout Nebraska. It also benefit data contributors, both public and private organizations that take soil core samples and input them into the database. It'll streamline the data upload process rather than just having to email Dr. Snow. They can click a button and upload a file. And it also provides a template which will enforce where and when they can submit data. So a little bit about the senior design team. Our squad lead and product manager is Cody Binder. Patrick McManigal is the development manager. Will Swiston, Cole Vasky, and myself are developers. And throughout this project, even though Cody and Patrick have specifically defined leadership roles, all of us have worked together in both at some stage in development, testing, and debugging. In addition to the students, we've had help through the faculty members. Bill Browning is our project manager, and Dr. Shruti Bowman is our tribe lead. And a second year senior design student is Jason Rademacher. He's our tech reviewer, and our industry coach is Laman Jala. So as for our project, the sponsor wanted an easier and faster way to look at sample data of Nebraska's Vadozone. And so what the Vadozone is the region of soil between the surface and the water table or the groundwater. And so what people do is they'll take core samples and analyze the chemical makeup of the soil. So for example, we want to make sure and analyze that farmers aren't putting too much nitrous fertilizer into the groundwater, so we don't want the groundwater to be polluted. And the problem with the older system is that each core had to be reviewed manually. So, because there was no like, central database stored for all the cores, and errors within the core and the uploaded files also had to be reviewed manually. And there was no actual template to enforce data submission. There was a data tutorial which outlined an example of how to upload data, but that wasn't really enforced previously. And I'll hand the presentation over to Cole to discuss how our system fixes these issues.
Thank you, Colin. Oh, so the solution we built, obviously, well, not obviously, was a data entry website. We're essentially just uploading Excel files. And then I'll try to cut down on the technical jargon a little bit. The front end, so in your browser, that's going to be displaying the error reports to you and the data that you upload. And the back end, where the front end sends the Excel file to, that's where the error report is generated and all the data is parsed and then stored in the database. And then we also have a login system as well. We kind of wanted to separate data uploaders from Nebraska Water Center administrators. That was something that we implemented throughout the project. And one more thing on this, that's not on this slide. We also, I kind of call it a ledger system, which is kind of a bad term for it. We also kind of worked on and started on implementing a system that separates each data point from like production data and data that has errors and data that needs to be verified by the administrators. We kind of started on that as well. So kind of get into the solution that we built. I should probably talk about the concept of a project as well. A project is where you upload an Excel file, and then that's where the error report is generated, and that's a project. So you can kind of see, we just took a screenshot of a test file here. On the top here, we have the core information. That's where you can kind of view just all the data points in the core, or in the Excel file, excuse me. And I should mention that each button kind of corresponds to one sheet in the Excel file. So there's a sheet for fertilizer, cropping, location, core, physical, chemical. You can find all this data in the Excel file as well. But if you just wanted to view it kind of in the browser, this is where you can go for that. But kind of the cream of the crop here is the known errors button. That's where the error report is generated, stored in the database, and then it's pulled from and displayed there, also kind of in the sheet format. So you can see in this particular project, there's errors in the physical chemical sheet. So this is kind of just showing, if you wanted to view, I'll go back. If you wanted to view like one of these buttons, just to view the core information. So like if you click the upper physical chemical button there, then you'd see something like this. There's a lot of data in this, in the physical chemical sheets. So we kind of cut out this, just like a cross section of the data, kind of to demonstrate the one-to-one relationship. So you can see, there's a nitrate row, core interval, just kind of show the one-to-one relationship here. One thing that was kind of challenging for us was the core ID. You actually have a core ID for that Excel sheet specifically, or that Excel file specifically, but that's unique to that Excel file. But when you upload it, obviously there's already been a core ID for that one. So we kind of had to do, that was kind of a challenge we overcame here, was generating a core ID for that kind of corresponded to the Excel sheet. So when you upload the data, you didn't lose that relationship from the Excel sheet. It's kind of a challenge we faced as we worked. And then solution built here. This is actually an error report here from the physical chemical file. Yes, we cut out the title there, but yeah, so you can kind of see there's one here. Kind of the most interesting ones, I think, is this top one here. You can see we have a description of the error where there's like a summation error. That's because across these three columns here, you can see we highlighted them red. This actually summed up to 110, which is supposed to represent a percentage of the soil composition. So that was kind of a challenge. Was we originally built this system where for each column, we kind of evaluated for data from that column specifically. Like you can see here, we have 120. That's not possible. Doesn't make sense. So then that's another error here. But to kind of generate an error for an issue across columns here, where like you have a summation error here between these three columns, that was kind of a challenge for us because we originally built this system for like evaluating one column. But when we found out about this potential error, that was another challenge we kind of faced. And then I'll go on. So the values obviously, kind of automates the data validation side of things at the Nebraska Water Center, and then you can receive reports of those error reports. And then also the website does enforce standardized submissions. So if you try to submit an Excel file that's not in the format that the Nebraska Water Center wants you to submit, it'll actually reject it. Say, hey, use the actual format. Yeah. So, yeah, that concludes our presentation. Any questions about the system? Yeah. So if you actually go to the Nebraska Water Center website, the current one, not this one, you can actually download a template that it gives you, and then you're supposed to fill that out. However, they kind of contract with NRDs all over the state, so sometimes they don't exactly follow that template. But since it's kind of hard to expect what they would do, we just kind of, if we don't see all these columns here and all these sheets, then we reject it. We say, hey, please follow the template that was given on the website. That's kind of how we handle that. Yeah. You mean these units right here? Yeah, we did kind of lose that, I guess. That wasn't really essential, I don't think, to store like those units there. You could look that up, just like online somewhere if you were really curious. Like, oh, what is the unit for this? Yeah, I think that's all the time we have. So you talk to us at our table if you got any more questions.